Hello everyone and welcome to England. Yes, this is the first ever official Walk and Talk episode actually filmed in the UK. Brilliant. So if you're new here, I'm basically just going to walk around and show you some really cool footage whilst hitting you with some natural, everyday British English conversation. So this is going to be a great way to improve your listening abilities. So where are we then? Well, we are in a city called Bristol. And Bristol is quite well known in the UK. It's just west of London. And to be honest with you, it's actually one of my favourite cities, certainly in England and probably in the world as well. And I think once you see the footage from this video, you'll be able to see why I like it so much, because it just has this really cool mix of old Victorian vibes as well as very modern, quite cool and trendy vibes. And I feel so old using that word trendy. It just feels like an old way to describe something that's cool, but yeah, Bristol is a stylish place, and it's also very multicultural as well. There are 2 universities here, so that also means that there are a lot of young people, which I think is important for a trendy city. Anyway, beautiful. So what is this bridge thing we are on? Well, this is actually a landmark in Bristol. It's called the Clifton Suspension Bridge. And the reason why this is so notable is, well, there are a few reasons. Firstly, it's just a beautiful piece of architecture, right? But also, you have to bear in mind, this was built over 160 years ago. So in the Victorian times, and it's still used to this day. I mean, back then it was seen as a very elegant piece of architecture and engineering. And the fact that 160 years after it was built, we still have 1 million cars going over it every single day, shows that it's not just aesthetically pleasing, it's actually a really well structured and designed piece of architecture. And it was designed by a man called Isambard Kingdom Brunel, which is a very cool name. Anyway, enough with the history, let's move on to the English. Yeah, I mean, it goes to show how nice it is. They sometimes film on there as well. So the other day, earlier this week, actually, it was shut down. The bridge was closed for a few hours because they were filming a very popular BBC drama or something like that. It turns out that the drama was a show called Casualty. I've never actually seen it before, but I have heard of it, so it is quite famous. But I think they do film quite a lot of films and TV shows, not only on the bridge, but just in Bristol in general. I've seen a few different shootings and stuff like that. It's quite cool, actually. Anyway, as mentioned, this is the first ever Walk and Talk episode filmed in England, so it's a special one. I started this format, I think, about 2 months ago in Argentina, and I managed to squeeze about 5 of these out of Buenos Aires and various different places. And I was in Brazil for a week. I got 2 from there, and, well, we had to get 1 from England. And I'm very happy to be doing this, especially in Bristol, because as mentioned, this is one of my favourite parts of England. And I'm not from here, but I do feel like I have some ties here, so I'm glad to be able to show it off. And I think this footage does do a good job of that. Now, I'm from somewhere close to here, so I'm in the same sort of area, the southwest of England. And whenever someone asks me where I'm from, if they're not from, I need to show you this because this is the famous red telephone box. And to be honest, I've never been inside one of these, and this was my first time, and they have books inside. I had no idea they had books in there, so I don't even think that's common knowledge in England, the fact that these things actually have books inside. That's kind of cool. I guess you can just take one, and you could also leave one. It's just a very honourable system, I guess, very sophisticated. And speaking of sophisticated, I wanted to capture these houses because it's the type of thing that you see on TV when you see like a film set in the UK. And I've just realised that's why they probably film so much in Bristol, right? Because there are so many cool buildings like this. Maybe those books were actually just props from a film recording and they forgot to take them back. Yeah, anyway. Another thing I probably should mention is that, well, I filmed this on a Monday, shortly after Christmas, so that explains 2 things. Firstly, that explains why there are so many bins everywhere. Throughout this footage, you will see a lot of bins and bags of rubbish on the streets. And that's because I guess in this area, Monday is bin day. And bin day is the day of the week where everyone takes out their rubbish, okay, for the the bin men and women to collect. So that's the only thing that ruined this otherwise very aesthetic recording. So please just ignore the vast number of bins and bags of rubbish you will see on the street. And another thing is, what was I going to say? Oh yeah, this was just after Christmas, so you will see some remnants of leftover Christmas decorations and trees and stuff like that. But there's something about this time of day and this time of the year as well. If the sun's out in England, it's just so nice because we very rarely get sun in winter, but the winter sun is very different from the summer sun. Obviously not just in terms of temperature, but the way it looks. The light is a lot softer and warmer. And to be honest with you, it's very hard to beat the feeling of a cool winter morning when the sun is out in England because the air is so nice. It's very crisp and it feels very clean and it's just so nice to breathe in through your nose. And of course, it's very aesthetic with the sun. It casts a very nice shadow. I think they call it the golden hour. This was at about 8 a.m, so it's actually perfect for filming. And then as we get into the footage a bit more, you'll see more people and the sun will kind of rise a bit more, so it's a nice mix. Anyway, what I was saying before I was very rudely interrupted by that phone box was whenever I am in another country and someone asks me whereabouts in England I'm from, I usually just say Bristol because there's no way they're going to know the small town I'm actually from that's kind of close to Bristol. And to be honest, most people don't actually know where Bristol is either, but there is something you can say. So, do you know Banksy, the artist? Banksy, very famous artist. He is from Bristol, and you can actually see a lot of his work scattered around Bristol. And I will be showing you a couple of original Banksys in this video, which is a nice touch, especially at the end. There's a really cool one right at the end of the video, so stick around for that, guys. But as mentioned, if someone asks me where I'm from, I'd usually just say Bristol, and I'd say about 90% of the time they haven't heard of that place. Then I would say, oh, that's where Banksy's from. And then out of those people who didn't know where Bristol was, I'd say about 20 to 30% of them will be like, oh, Banksy, oh, wow, yeah, that's cool. And then the rest of them won't know who Banksy is. So I'll just say, oh, it's just west of London, like an hour away from London. They'll be like, oh, yeah, cool, I know that. Oh, so you're from London. Oh, cool, mate, that's sick, yeah. Bottle of water, ha, ha, ha. That's the usual interaction. Now, we just walked past a restaurant called Zzz's, and this is the third time that I have named and shamed Zzz's because I feel like, well, I have the opportunity to do so. So Zzz's is an Italian restaurant in England, and it's just a chain, so I don't feel like anyone has any real personal connection to Zzz's. It just sort of popped up, and now they're everywhere. And honestly, this is such a bad restaurant. It's the home of overpriced, salty, Italian, in quotation marks, food. They actually have that on their website. That is their slogan. Yeah, and I went there once, and apparently all it takes is one bad experience for you to have a distaste for that place for the rest of your life. Because, yeah, it was so bad. It wasn't the one in Bristol, but it was in another part of England. And I went in there, and it was just after COVID, but it was long enough after COVID that it shouldn't have still been impacted by it. And it was actually for a work thing. So it was when I was working for a phone shop in England, O2, if you must know. And it was like our Christmas party or something. And we walked in there, and the staff, they basically told us, like the waiters and the waitresses just told us to order off of our phones. And to do that, we had to connect to the Wi-Fi, and the Wi-Fi wasn't working, so they had to come over and fix it on our phones. Then we had to sign up to something. We had to verify our email address, and then we had to sign up to their marketing emails. And then when we got onto the menu, it just didn't work properly. And I was like, this is ridiculous. This is a restaurant. We should not have to go through all of this just to order, just so that the waiters and the waitresses can sit on their asses and speak to each other. You know, they're getting paid to work right now. They should be taking our orders. So I was like, excuse me, sir. Please do your job in the most respectful way possible, of course. Yeah, then the food arrived, and it was very underwhelming, extremely salty, as I say. So listen, just don't go to Zzz's. If you take one thing from this video, then make it that. And I'm sorry if you're a big Zzz's enthusiast. Maybe I just had a bad experience of that place. Maybe normally it's lovely, but if you're looking for a high street chain of Italian restaurants to go to, you should go to Pizza Express instead, because that place is a classic. Anyway, we are currently in a small village in Bristol called Clifton. And then we're going to walk into the main part of Bristol, and there are going to be a few more people there and a bit more activity. So you'll get a taste of everything. And after that, we're going to go down to the harbour, so you can see some water and some boats and some ducks. And then I can't really remember where we're going to go after that, but we'll see. So yeah, another random story about Bristol. I went to Toronto about 4 months ago, right? And on my first day, I was looking for a gym. And I went to this one place, and the guy was like, "Sorry, dude, we don't accept memberships here. It's only one-to-one personal training. But you should try this place called Barry's, okay?" I was like, "Okay, thanks, man." And he was like, "No worries, dude. Have a great day." Because all Canadians sound like that, obviously. I can't do a Canadian accent. But to my to my untrained ears, I'm going to be honest, I find it quite hard to hear the difference between the American accent and the Canadian accent. And I should say the accent from the States. Okay, you hear that, South Americans? I got you. I'm not just lumping you in with the people from the States anymore. You're welcome. I've been told off too many times for doing that. But it's quite hard to tell the difference. And I'm not saying that Canadians are the same as Americans at all. I know that they don't like that. They don't like being compared to Americans, and maybe vice versa as well. But I was in Toronto, and this nice Canadian man just told me to go to this place called Barry's. Apparently this was a gym. So I walked there. It was only about 15 minutes. And when I arrived, I saw the person working on the reception, and I was expecting him to be like, "Hey dude, welcome to Barry's, man, the place where fitness comes first. My name is John, and I'm going to be your guy for today. Let's get this fitness on, man." But really, he was just like, "Right, mate?" I was very confused. I was like, "Hi, is this a gym?" He goes, "Yeah, mate, yeah, it's a gym, yeah. So you can sign up for these classes here." And it wasn't a gym, by the way. It was like a fitness group, but it was still really good. And he was like, "Yeah, mate, so we are open from this time to here, and you need to make a booking on the website." And in my head, I was thinking, am I still in England? This is my first day here. This is the second person I've met, and he's speaking in a British accent. So at the end, I just said, "You're British, right?" He goes, yeah. You? And I was like, "Yeah, obviously." And we sort of laughed about that. And I said, "So where are you from?" He goes, "I'm from Bristol." I was like, "No way, man. That's crazy." Me too. Kind of. So we were able to bond over that. And yeah, I was there for a month, and we did hang out a couple of times. I feel like men in particular, they were very bad at starting and maintaining friendships. Maybe that's just an adult thing. When you get older, it becomes harder to make friends and keep friends as well, like new friends. And maybe also a bit of a British thing as well, because we don't like being too outgoing, and we wouldn't want to say, "Oh yeah, man, let's hang out and be friends." It was just a bit more awkward than that. It's like, "Oh yeah, we can go to a fitness class and maybe we could have a pint afterwards." And in fairness, on that day we did do a fitness class, and then we did have about 6 pints afterwards. So yeah, it was a nice way to get introduced to Canada by hanging out with a guy from Bristol. Anyway, if you look to your left, you will see Greg's, and Greg's is very famous. So it's actually, basically, it's a shop. It's kind of like a bakery, and they're known for selling the best sausage rolls in the world, right? And it's more popular in the north of England than it is in the south, but we still have them in the south, right? And it's the most common restaurant in the whole of the UK. So it's got more locations than any other food chain in the UK, right? So more than McDonald's, more than Burger King, more than Subway, more than these really famous global fast food chains. Like there are McDonald's everywhere, right? But Greg's is the most prevalent. And that just goes to show how popular it is. So I would assume that most of them are in the north, because in the north of England, there's literally a Greg's on every corner. But there are quite a few in the south as well. But once again, I don't think that's common knowledge. I don't think that most people, certainly most southerners, wouldn't realize that Greg's is the most prevalent food chain in the whole of the UK, because everyone knows about Greg's, but I think most people would assume, such as myself, before I knew that, I would have 100% thought that the most common restaurant would be McDonald's, because there are McDonald's everywhere, and that's like the most famous one, but no, it turns out to be Greg's. And yeah, Greg's is incredible. They sell pastries, the sausage rolls, of course, they sell sweet things, they sell sandwiches and coffee and stuff. That's a really good coffee place, by the way. Under Pressure Coffee. You should go there. Right, so another reason why I am happy to be showing off Bristol and happy to be filming this video is because, well, these videos are really, really fun to film. Obviously, there's a bit of friction, waking up early, and it was absolutely freezing. I think it was about 0 or maybe -1 At the start of the video, there was actually a warning sign on the bridge saying, be careful. If you were very observant if you saw this, but there was a warning sign that said, icy conditions, be careful. So yeah, it was absolutely freezing. I was wearing a coat, about 2 jumpers, a beanie, some gloves, and a scarf. So I was nice and snug. And of course, just waking up early and getting a camera out is very un-British. Oh wait, this is very important. So crafty beans, there's actually a lot of lore here. So about 2 years ago, I uploaded a video on my channel of me recording myself walking into a cafe and placing my order. We then analysed that order and I was able to break down why I used certain expressions. And that cafe, Crafty Beans, that is exactly where I recorded that video. Yeah. You know what? Let's play it. I'm going to show you a small snippet of it just for fun. So get ready to witness the smoothest coffee order you will ever see in your entire life.
Hi mate, you alright? Yeah, I'm good, thanks.
Okay, for you, sir.
Can I have a latte, please?
And that is how you do it. So firstly, this is the first Banksy of the video, by the way, this cool piece of art here. Yeah, so it's nice that they're just scattered around in random places. And there's also another one quite close to here that I'm going to show you at the end as well. I think that one's a bit more sort of iconic. Anyway, I was really nervous filming that video because there's something about filming yourself in public in that way that kind of changes the way in which you act. It's strange, but it just doesn't feel natural, right? So you start overthinking things, and that's when you start acting weirdly on camera. So I remember it took me about 2 days to film that video. And in those 2 days, I walked into about 4 different cafes and ordered 6 different coffees, just trying to get the perfect recording. And that's the best I could come up with. It was actually a really good video though. I really enjoyed it because I was actually teaching real British English, and that's always a good thing, but we'll talk about that a bit later on. Now, this is a very, very cool area. I have no idea what that building is. I'm just going to be honest with you, but it looks magnificent. I feel like this is giving off such an impressive English vibe. Do you know what I mean? If you were to think of a beautiful English area with these huge buildings and the historic churches and stuff like that, this is probably the type of thing that you would imagine. So yeah, it's a pleasure to be able to show this magnificent setting to you in this video. Right, and yeah, these videos are just like really enjoyable to film in general because there's something about, well, the alternative to this style of recording would be me sitting down in front of the camera like I normally do, right? But sometimes recording that style of video is just painful. Sometimes it's very easy and it flows perfectly and it's actually really fun to record, but a lot of the time, it's absolutely excruciating. I don't really like having loads and loads of jump cuts, so I like to be able to, wow, that is a magnificent church. I like to be able to get a recording in one take. I don't want there to be loads of mistakes in the middle. So you could be speaking for a full minute, trying to remember this script and trying to be somewhat eloquent and trying to be somewhat entertaining and smiling and all of this stuff, and not doing anything weird like blinking 4 times in a row for some reason because you've had too much caffeine and your left eyelid is just going crazy. I can definitely relate to that. And then you'd be doing that for a minute. You're nearly done at the section. You're nearly done before you get to a transition. You can stop. And then on the last sentence, you'll mess up one word and you'll need to redo the whole thing. And it is excruciatingly painful. But with this style of video, firstly, getting the actual footage is really fun, as mentioned, but it doesn't matter if you make a mistake because it's an audio-only recording. So if I make a mistake, I can easily just pause the footage, then go back and correct the mistake. Anyway, back to the coffee video. God, this is a proper ramble, well and truly. There is no order to this video whatsoever. But that coffee video, yeah, as mentioned, it took a lot of trips to the cafe to actually get that one recorded. And you know what? That actually hurt me financially as well because they're not cheap. It's like £4.20 for each of the coffees. So that added up. That's like £16 a day of expenses just for coffee alone. And I was absolutely buzzing throughout the whole thing. All of that caffeine. Woo! Yeah, good times. But as mentioned, I persevered because I thoroughly enjoy teaching real British English. And I'd say that's actually my forte. So when I was doing my private lessons, that was a really big focus. And with the newsletters that I send every Tuesday and with these videos as well, these are all brilliant ways of teaching real British English. So what do I mean by that? Well, I'll give you an example. So in the UK, what does it mean if someone says all right to you? Now, if you've seen my videos, you'll probably know the answer to this, but all right means hi. So all right doesn't mean are you all right? And I know that sounds like a bit of a weird thing to say to someone, but it's just the standard greeting. So in other English-speaking countries, they would say hi, how you doing? Or hi. But in the UK, we say all right. And here we're not asking, are you all right? We are just saying hi, okay? So I know that I remember my old Korean teacher. She used to say, when I first arrived to the UK, why was everyone asking me if I was all right? It was so weird. Like, why wouldn't I be all right? Do I not look all right? And I was like, no, they're just saying hi. She was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And now, just to make things even more confusing, we also say you're all right. And this is different to all right. Because with you're all right, that is us actually asking if you are all right. Kind of. So all right means hi, and you're all right means how are you? But we're not expecting a detailed response. It's kind of like almost a fake question, like a formality. So if someone says you're all right to you, they want to know how you are, but not really. So you shouldn't say something like, not really. I've been a bit up and down recently. So I got this new job, which is great. But then also they found damp in my flat. So it looks like I'm going to have to sleep at my sister's house for the next month. And also my cat's been coughing up verbals all week. So it's just a bit stressful because, and then also I spilled coffee on myself. No, we don't want that. We want you to say, yeah, I'm all right, you. Or, yeah, not too bad, thanks, you. So just like the most boring, ambiguous answer, please. We're not actually asking how you are. Okay, we don't care. Now, I'm joking, we do. But if we want to know how you are, we will say something like, how are you? Or, so how's it going then? Another example of real British English is mate. Before we get into this is the harbour in Bristol, and it's so nice, right? So aesthetic. And you can see all of the old buildings. And there's actually a boat that carries you from one side of the water to the other, and it costs £1. Yeah, I used to get that a bit because Aldi was on the other side. I used to live close to here, actually. And I would get that boat to Aldi for the weekly shop. Yeah, and it would cost me £1. £1 there, £1 back. I think it's so the boat carries it carries anywhere between 1 to 10 people, right? It just depends how many people are getting the boat on that day. And only one person needs to pay the £1. So it's kind of like voluntary, but as long as one person pays it, then you're good. So it's just who wants to volunteer to pay this £1. Anyway, what were we saying? Mate, yes. So that's one of the most common words in British English, and we genuinely use it all the time. And mate can be used on anyone. It doesn't matter if you actually know them or not. So mate actually means friend, right? But we don't just save this for our actual friends. We say this to anyone. So a taxi driver is mate. A random person on the street is mate. A shopkeeper is mate. Your postman is called mate. So you would usually just say this to men, to be honest with you, but you can also say it to women, but more often than not, you would say this to a man. Right, so mate means friend, but you don't just say this to your friends, you say this to everyone. So, all right, mate, doesn't mean, how are you, friend? It means, hi, person. Yeah. Now, there are, of course, caveats. My mate, if you say that someone is your mate, that does actually mean you are friends with them. So if you said something like, oh yeah, my mate went to Spain the other day, said it was really good, that means your friend went there because they're your mate. But if you said, sorry, mate, do you know what time this train is leaving? Then, this person isn't your friend, you don't know them. And that's another thing, just saying sorry for no apparent reason, starting a sentence with sorry or excuse me, because these are just the British mannerisms that we have. And I just love teaching this type of thing because I think it's so interesting and I think it's so useful. And no one teaches this. So I think it's so useful for anyone who's actually coming to the UK. Because when you get here, if you don't know these things, it's going to be a bit awkward because we have all of these unspoken social rules that we all follow. All of the natives know about these, but no one teaches these to you when you're actually learning English. So that's what I'm here for. I just think if you're coming to the UK, this information is so, so important. And you know what? I wasn't planning on doing this, but if you are coming to the UK, or if you are currently living in the UK and you want to fit in a bit better and feel a bit more comfortable and actually feel like a bit more of a native yourself, then, well, I spent the whole of last year making a course that would be perfect for you. So it basically covers everything you need to know to actually feel like a native in British English. So there are 5 modules. The first one is all about vocabulary and real British English expressions. Second one is all about mastering your British accent. Thirdly, we have speaking practice. Fourthly, we have listening. And the 5th one is all about the UK culture. There are over 210 lessons, and they're all incredibly detailed and actually focused on real British English. So all the things you actually need to know if you're coming to the UK or if you're already living here. And that's why it took me over a year to make, because it's so detailed and it's amazing. It genuinely will change your life and make you feel so much more comfortable about living in the UK. Anyway, the link to that is in the top comment with a full trailer and all the information. And there is also a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you can try it completely risk-free. Links in the top comment. Check it out. Anyway, let's talk about love. Love, yeah. I think I'm looking for love at this point, because I just feel like having a partner can be so advantageous, as long as they're the right type of person, because that is important. But I feel like it can be good for you in almost every single way. So even, let's look at the advantages. So even in things that you probably wouldn't expect. So like business, for example, or success. So stereotypically, some people, typically men, would say something like, don't get married, bro. She'll take your money, bro. It'll just ruin your life, bro. Just going to be a gold digger, bro. And that's just obviously not true. Maybe that is true if you marry the wrong person. This is not gender specific, by the way. So a man could marry the wrong woman and then be worse off financially and in their life. And of course, a woman could marry the wrong man and it would be the exact same thing. So we're not talking about specific genders here. But I just feel like that's untrue. I feel like this whole Sigma solo grind set thing is actually just a load of rubbish, because if you have a partner, and this is speaking as a single man with no kids or anything like that, so I think I know a thing or two about love and commitment, yeah, obviously. But if you look at some successful people, and regardless of how you feel about them, people such as Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and Bill Gates, they're all right. So Bezos was married for 25 years, okay, and he's got 4 kids. I mean, obviously he's divorced now, but I don't really think that's like a whole gold digger story. And a gold digger is kind of like slang for someone who marries someone else just in order to get their money. Then they break up and then they get half of their possessions. But I think that was a very long marriage. If that was a gold digger situation, then that was an incredibly long play. 25 years, crazy. So the founder of Amazon, right, one of the most successful people in the world, married and kids. If you look at Elon Musk, regardless of how you feel about him, he is successful. He had multiple marriages. He's got 11 kids. And they've all got crazy QR code names. So yeah, he's been busy. And Bill Gates, another example, the founder of Microsoft, married and 3 kids. So I definitely don't agree that having a partner would slow you down professionally. It's kind of like having a constant supporter by your side. So if everything else is going wrong in your life, at least you have someone else who is able to support you, as I say. But of course, this has to be the right person though, and you can't really force it. I obviously think you're a lot better off being by yourself than you are with someone else who isn't the right person. Plus, ultimately, these commitments, such as, having a partner or marriage or kids, with these things, you lose your freedom. Obviously, that's just a fact, but you do gain purpose, and purpose is definitely very important. I feel like purpose is what leads to happiness. And listen, 100% you can get purpose from other areas without a partner or without kids. A lot of people, such as myself, do that. So family, friends, being a member of a community or a society, work. You can gain a lot of purpose from your work and your career. Having pets, all of these things are absolutely fine. Yeah, it's just when you do take on that big commitment, you lose the freedom. You can't just decide to move to another city, or you can't decide to randomly start a business, because you have to take other people's lives into consideration, of course. Freedom is fun, but purpose is probably what leads to happiness in the long run. So yeah, it's a big decision. Anyway, here we are. This is more of the sort of central Bristol area. And I mean, I love this area because you can see like the very old cobbled streets. And I think Bristol was heavily developed during the Victorian years because you can see that from the architecture of the buildings. They're all huge and grand and feel very old, especially this area in particular. So as an adult, I have lived in Bristol for about 2 years or so. And I was actually living quite close to the harbour, which is why I ended up filming that coffee video in those particular cafes. I tried it in under pressure. Didn't work. I was under pressure myself from trying to record those videos with an obscene amount of caffeine in my bloodstream. Look at this number plate, by the way. Bieber's. Huh? Is that Justin Bieber's car? Who knows? That's what I was thinking. So I thoroughly enjoyed living in Bristol, but it was quite a lonely time in my life. When you're self-employed, and when you're an adult in general, it's hard to make friends. So I really did. I went to several different events and stuff like that. I was really putting myself out there. And well, in a minute, I'll be able to show you a cool event I did go to. And if you're coming to Bristol as well, then you can also go here. It's like a running club, but it's hosted at a pub, like a brewery. So you get to go for beers afterwards if you want to. And I tried all sorts of things. I tried a business like meeting thing, and that was just me and about 6 different 50-year-olds talking about they were all talking about their proper grown-up businesses, like, oh yeah, I do logistical supply chains for this company here, or I sell infrastructure for this steel manufacturer, all very boring things. And I was like, yeah, I have a YouTube channel, right? Sometimes I read stories to improve people's listening skills, and it was fun though. They were fine. It was I stood out a bit, but it wasn't unpleasant. They were very welcoming and stuff like that. But I wasn't really able to relate to them or really make friends with them as well. So I also tried to go to a Japanese language exchange. And that was interesting, to be fair. I did meet some cool people there. You know what? I do actually have some British English YouTuber lore that I'm about to drop on you. So I met some guy there and we were speaking. He said, oh, so what do you do? And I told him that I teach English on YouTube. He was like, oh, really? No way. Because there was a woman that used to come here and she did the same thing as well. She was a British English teacher on YouTube as well. I was like, oh, really? No way. What's she called? And he thought for a minute and he said, let me just check because I do have her YouTube channel. And he looked on his phone and a few seconds later he goes, Pronunciation with Emma. And he showed me the channel. And if you don't know, Pronunciation with Emma is huge British English YouTuber. You probably do know, to be fair. And apparently she also used to go to that very same Japanese language exchange in Bristol. And she stopped going maybe a few months before I started going. And that's a bit of I've never spoken to Emma before in my life, but this is just what that guy said to me. I don't know if it's true, but if it is, that's quite the coincidence. Yeah, we do have some sort of very tenuous link tying us together. Right, another thing that I really do like about England and Bristol in particular is, as you can see, there's just like this beautiful church in the middle of nowhere. And in Asia, I was in awe at the number of temples they had and how seamlessly they were integrated into the rest of the country or the city. And I was always quite jealous of that. And I've just only realized as I was looking back through the footage that we have the same thing, but we don't have temples. We have these churches. So I think it makes it a lot more aesthetic, certainly, and it makes it feel a lot more authentic as well. And also it's great for filming, so I'm very happy about that. I am seeing Bristol in a completely different light now because obviously this is the first time I've ever recorded it. And it was as I was editing the footage, choosing which parts of the footage I would like to keep in the video because I have about 3 hours worth. I was filming for all morning, right? And I've seen a different side of it now because it's only when you look back at the footage that you start to realize things. You start to notice things that you didn't notice before. So, for example, it's only after watching this footage back that I realized how nice the color scheme is in Bristol. So the color of the flooring and the stone, they all sort of match. They have this very nice light grey aesthetic, which will have been from the Victorian times, right? And I'm definitely not observant enough to actually notice these things in real time. It's only when looking back through the footage that I recorded that I can actually gain another type of appreciation for Bristol. So That's another good thing about these videos. But what I will say is, oh my goodness, the editing is so hard. The decision fatigue is next level because it's hard to have 3 hours worth of footage and to decide which parts to keep and in what order it should all go in and how long, like when to jump cut, and should I leave this a bit longer? Should I jump cut there? Are they going to get bored if we walk along this road for too long? Does something interesting happen here? I think a pigeon flew out there. Isn't that really cool? Shouldn't we include that in the video as well? There are a lot of small decisions to be made. But ultimately, I feel honoured to be able to show Bristol to you, so I hope you are enjoying this video. Right, so in terms of living here, it's very nice. I would assume that if you were to move here, you probably would be working for a company here. And that's one thing I've always envied about people who work in companies, because I would imagine that you get social interaction pretty much every single day, right? Unless you're solely working from home, in which case you probably wouldn't move to Bristol in the first place, right? But it's probably a lot easier to make friends with people if you're working together. Or at least you're going to be able to go out to a pub or something, or a cafe or something, or you'll be able to have some sort of social interaction outside of work, I would imagine, because they have like work social events as well. So I'd say in my experience, if you're just self-employed and you don't really have any reason to see new people, it might be hard to make friends anywhere in the UK. But otherwise, for most people, I think you'll be absolutely fine. Bristol is a really friendly city as well. That's something I definitely noticed. Because as mentioned in a previous video, there is this stereotype that people in the north of England tend to be friendlier than those from the south. And I don't necessarily agree with this. I've lived in both places, and to be honest with you, I think that both places contain roughly the same number of nice, friendly people. I'd say northerners are more outgoing, and they're more likely to initiate the conversation, which is a friendly thing to do. But also, that doesn't mean that southerners are impolite or unfriendly. Maybe they're just even more reserved, and we're all British at the end of the day, so we're all kind of reserved, but northerners definitely are more outgoing. Now, the south of England is kind of dominated by London. To be honest, all of England is kind of dominated by London, especially from an international point of view, because that's the main city, right? And I think that London actually perpetuates this stereotype that southerners are unfriendly, but I don't think that's a southern thing. It's just a big city mentality. So when you're in a big city, you're not necessarily unfriendly. I just think the people there, because it's so populated and because it's so sort of stressful and it's like go, 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 people are more focused on themselves, okay? And it's not just London. It's the same with any big city. I'm sure it's the exact same with New York. It's the same with Tokyo. People say that Tokyo residents tend to be colder and less outgoing. And I think it's just this big city mentality. There's nothing wrong with it. If you live in one of these action-packed, populated cities, you'll probably notice that if you moved there from somewhere else, your personality will have changed a bit. You will have adapted to this new environment. And therefore, you will just be a bit more focused on yourself. And that can be perceived as coldness. So what I'm trying to say is, I don't think that southerners are necessarily colder than northerners. Certainly not literally, because the north is freezing. But I think that people from a major city like London are more focused on themselves. And it's the same, I'd say it's kind of the same with Manchester as well. Manchester's a great city. And to be fair, it is less intense than London, but there are also quite a few self-centered people in Manchester as well. I think it's a city thing as opposed to a regional thing. That's what I'm saying. And this brings me on to another point, and I hope we have enough time to get into this properly. Basically, I feel like a lot of countries have two main cities. Okay, so we have the major city, usually the capital city. And this is the place that people think about when they think of that country. So for example, England would be London, Japan would be Tokyo, Canada, Toronto, Korea, Seoul, Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur. Okay, it's like the main city, right? And I feel like there's always the other city that's kind of certainly the second most popular place. And it's similar to the first one in the sense that it's quite intense, but it's kind of like the chilled out version. So we have Tokyo, and then the chilled version would be Osaka. Still a very popular city. There's lots to do there, but it's just a bit more relaxed. With Toronto, With Toronto, we have Vancouver, which is another popular city, but just a bit more relaxed, yeah? We have Busan for Seoul. We have, I think Georgetown is maybe like the chilled version of Kuala Lumpur. Anyway, the point is, it's undoubtedly true that the place where you're living, the city in which you are in, or the city in which you're visiting, has such a huge impact on your mindset and the way in which you live on a day-to-day basis, the decisions you make and your goals and things like that. If you're in these crazy cities like London, Tokyo, Toronto, the capital cities, even though Toronto isn't the capital city, it should be though, but whatever, you're going to have a much more intense mindset, okay? Maybe a lot more goal-oriented, because that's just how you're supposed to live with everything else around you. You have these constant things telling you need to go, 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 go. But with the more relaxed versions of these cities, like Vancouver instead of Toronto, and I'm sure, please let me know if I probably have missed out your country, because I've only named about 3 different countries. But if you're able to add to this theory, so if your country has a major city and the more chilled out version of it, then let me know, because I've definitely missed some. But your environment definitely has a huge impact on who you are as a person. So if you're someone who is born in one of these cities, you may have a whole different side to your personality that you don't even know about because you haven't gone somewhere else and you weren't able to explore it. Yeah, random point, but this whole video has been a mess, let's be honest. Anyway, to the left, we have the library. And I used to go to the library a lot because, as mentioned, I was living very close to here and my Wi-Fi sucked, which is a common theme. For some reason, I find it impossible to move into a flat that doesn't have terrible Wi-Fi. Anyway, Bristol City Library has the most rapid Wi-Fi one could possibly imagine. And it's also a beautiful building. Anyway, this is the final thing I wanted to show you. So, speaking of Banksy, this incredibly talented artist, he'll just pop up in random places, not just in Bristol, but all around the world, and will create these incredible works of art, right? And the most alluring thing about him is that no one knows what he looks like. No one knows any of these details about him. He's very much an enigma. And if we look here, at the end of this alleyway, at the bottom of the library, next to all of the bins and stuff, there's just a Banksy. This is a Banksy painting, right? You don't need planning permission to build castles in the sky. Yeah, that's an original Banksy, just surrounded by bins and rubbish, which I'm sure was intentional because it adds to the meaning of the painting. Right, and we're back at the bridge. And sorry, there is one more thing I'm going to show you here. So this is a secret pathway, yeah. I think it would be really cool, actually, if you are able to visit Bristol after watching this video, because you'll know the spots now. You'll know roughly where to go. And there's something so exciting about seeing something in real life that you've seen online in a video. It's like, oh wow, this thing actually exists. How cool is that? So if you do come here, I'd recommend going to Under Pressure for the coffee. The Beans Cafe, I can't remember what it's called. If you want to see where I filmed that iconic YouTube video, yeah, I'm sure they'll remember me. But the coffee there is quite good as well. And that general area, you need to go there because you need to check out the churches and the harbour and the Banksies and stuff like that. And that's actually a really cool area. And where we're going right now is just at the top of the bridge. And you kind of need to go to the bridge as well because it is iconic. And this is an observatory. I have been in here once, several years ago. I can't really remember what it is. I remember thinking it's slightly underwhelming, but it's still a cool building. And the fact that we even have an observatory is quite unique as well. Now, there is one final surprise at the end of this video, and it's so cute. So don't click off yet. Right then, so I guess we can do the conclusion now, the outro. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I hope that you have enjoyed this video. I hope this has persuaded you to visit England and visit Bristol in particular and try to find a sunny day because, I mean, that makes all the difference. And yeah, I love this city, but I also feel like if you're planning a trip to the UK, it might be kind of hard to... There are so many different options, so many different places that you might want to visit. Obviously, for most people, they will want to visit London. Then after that, it's kind of like, well, where else shall I go? You know, there are so many different options. I don't really know much about any of these other places because London sort of just dominates the UK, right? Certainly England. So you may go to Scotland. You might want to go to the lake. Yeah, this was the surprise. This cute dog. So no, I think he does actually he takes a piss on that bin, but he's still adorable and so cute. So cute, and that's how we end the video. Right then, I'll just put some random footage on the screen whilst we finish this point. I feel like if you're coming to the UK, it's hard to decide where to go. So as mentioned, we have London. You'll probably want to go to Scotland as well, because Scotland is beautiful. It's probably one of the most beautiful places in the world, but the problem is the weather is dreadful in Scotland. It's constantly raining. It's even worse than it is in England, and possibly also the Lake District. You may have heard of that. It's in the north of England, just below Scotland, actually. And it's beautiful. It's just nature. And actually, since you've made it this far into the video, I am going to give you a bit of a sneak preview. In 2 weeks' time, I'm going to go to the Lake District and I'm going to do a walk and talk episode. So you will get a feel of what it's like up there. And hopefully that will also persuade you to visit. But once you hit those major spots in England and in Scotland, then you might be thinking, well, where else am I going to go? You know, there's so many options. So I'd recommend Bristol. Maybe Manchester. Is quite close to the Lake District. It's kind of on the way. It's basically a very popular city. It's quite trendy or cool or stylish. Lots of young people there, universities there, really cool buildings. Terrible weather though, and there's no nature in Manchester at all. It's a very, very, very grey city. I don't think anyone will mind me saying that. The weather tends to be grey and the buildings are quite grey as well. And in terms of other nice cities, Oxford is lovely. It's about an hour away from London. Really, really beautiful. I'd love to do an episode there. Stunning nature, incredible buildings. I think they filmed some of Harry Potter there. And obviously, once again, 2 universities there as well. Cambridge, I can't really remember Cambridge. I think I went there a long time ago, but it's another sort of notable posh place in England that you could visit and have a lovely time in. Brighton is by the sea. It's an hour away from London. If the sun is out, then you should go there, get some fish and chips there. For sure, that's another famous English place. So those are my recommendations if you are planning on visiting the UK. Right then, we are going to wrap things up now. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please consider leaving me a like and subscribing to the channel, maybe even commenting down below. And as mentioned, if you are coming to the UK, or if you are currently living in the UK and you're a bit confused and you'd like to feel a bit more comfortable and just improve your English in general, specifically your British English, specifically real British English that will actually make you feel more native and less confused, I would highly recommend checking out my online course. It's incredibly detailed and comprehensive. There are over 210 lessons. Yeah, and 5 modules, as I say. And it's solely focused on real British English, but it really will help you to feel so much more native. I promise you won't be disappointed. I was working on this course for over a year now, and I'm still not done. I'm still going to be adding things to it as well. So the link to that is in the top comment, and there is also a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you can try it completely risk-free. And if you have any questions, please just comment down below, but the link will bring you to a website with all of the information and a full trailer, and I'll also put my email address there so you can message me with any further questions. Right, thank you again so much for watching, and I'll see you next Friday for another episode. Cheers. Mwah.